morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. We have Amanda Philpott will be excused from the meeting this morning. Is there a motion to that effect? Ellen, please. All in favor, please indicate. Thank you. We have joining us online is Dan Short, Councillor Short, and Councillor Holly Johnson. Welcome. Can you hear and
Good morning.
See us well enough? Hear us well enough?
Yes, I can.
Good, thank you.
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So with that, we'll move to the adoption of the minutes of our previous meeting of the March 9th, 2023 meeting. Are there any errors or omissions or alterations that need to be made to those minutes? And if there are none, just a motion to approve would be in order. Kelly, please. Motion.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Call for post agenda items. Is there anything else to add to our agenda today? I will just note that we have delegations attending at 11 o'clock. At 11:30, we have a public hearing, and then another delegation at 1 o'clock. That's noted in our agenda. So seeing no additions, a motion to approve the agenda. Adina, all in favor that we approve the agenda as circulated? That's carried. Thank you. Question period or notices of motion. Any questions out there?
We have nothing online yet this morning.
Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 8.1. Bylaw 2050-23, special tax for EID water users, 3 readings. Shannon, welcome to the meeting this morning, and the floor is yours. Others. Got it.
User error. All right, hello everyone. So this one comes every year. The EID, we do this on their behalf. We levy these, the special tax bylaw to collect for them the funds for the water, for household water and the rural water use agreements that they have with landowners in certain subdivisions. So there's 411 properties this year, and so they send us an invoice and then we just flip that with the taxes. So I am looking for 3 readings on this one today.
Shannon, where do you get your numbers from, or why do those numbers fluctuate, the users? Do they provide those numbers, EID, or do the subdivisions provide those numbers? How does that come about?
Yeah, so the EID sends me a spreadsheet, and so then I populate like any new properties with their roll number, and then I send it back to them so we're ready for next year. And it does fluctuate because sometimes I'll get calls from people questioning it and they're not using the rural water, so then those calls get redirected to the EID, and then they might withdraw from that agreement with them, and then they drop off my list excuse me, for next year. So, and that's where that comes from. So, and then I just import that information to our system, so it's actually pretty efficient. So
I move that we give first reading to this bylaw. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm not hearing Arno on his microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't have it turned on. There was somebody home, but no lights on. Is that fair? Yeah. Yeah, no comment, I guess, right? So that motion passed. Thank you, Susan. Similarly, I would entertain second reading of motion bylaw 205-23. Ellen, please.
I move bylaw 2020-23 for second reading.
2050-23.
2050-23
Right.
for second reading.
All in favor of approving second reading, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Similarly, third reading. Pardon me, consent for third. Yes, right. Lynette, please. Thank you.
I'll move third reading.
Yeah, thank you. All in favor of passing third reading on this bylaw? That's carried. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item number 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. There's some procedural inadequacies at the chair, and I accept that. I'm sorry. Now we need a motion for third reading. Kelly?
I will move third and final reading of bylaw 2050-23.
Thank you. All in favor that we pass third reading, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 8.2, bylaw 2051-23, special tax for Rolling Hills Communal Water, Raw Water Irrigation System. 3 readings. Go ahead, Shannon, please.
So this special tax comes every year. This one is to fund the Rolling Hills, the expenses for their irrigation within the hamlet. Those parcels are identified by the advisory committee, and we consult with them before we decide what kind of levy we're looking at to make sure they have the funds and they're happy with what we've got sitting for them. So yeah, I think that's about it with that one. I'm also looking for 3 readings for that one as well, please.
Right. Thank you, Shannon. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we could entertain first reading of bylaw 2051-23. Adina, please.
I move we give first reading to bylaw 2051-23.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of passing first reading? That's carried. Thank you. Similarly, second reading. Is there a motion to approve? Greg, please.
I'll move second reading.
Thank you. All in favor of passing second reading? Yes, yeah, that's carried. Thank you. At this point, we need consent for third reading. Somebody has this figure. Ellen, please. All in favor of consent for third reading? That is carried. And with that, a motion for third reading on bylaw 2051-23. Third reading. Lynette, please. All in favor of third reading, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. And with that, we'll move to item 8.3, bylaw 2052-23, special tax for Scandia. Similarly.
Thanks. So this one operates the exact same way as the Rolling Hills one does. So we consult with the Scandia Advisory Board, make sure they're happy with their numbers, and it's based on risers within the Scandia, the service lots. And so then we collect the funds and just to fund their road water system.
Thank you. Question, Kelly?
So I guess I had the question last time too. I know we do this every year. There's not a way that we can do this. No. Okay. Not that I'm wanting to rush things but this allows us to have input from the users is what I'm thinking, and update our list and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and evaluate where they are financially. If we need to adjust, like if something big goes wrong, then we would adjust to the funds rate to cover that. Yeah, and similarly, if they end up with too much of a reserve, then we can reduce it down.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Yeah, and just to be clear, the amount raised is recommended by the advisory board in the community. So if they know they've got big repairs coming up for the pumps or things are changing, they give the number to Shannon and she runs it through the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Lynette, please.
Do we not do this for Tilly as well?
No, just Rolling Hills and Scandia are the only communities currently that have, and this is a raw water irrigation system that the community runs. So, you know, risers around the yard, they're using EID water instead of our treated water, which is great system to have in place. I believe Westland Acres has kicked around the idea of the similar kind of scheme. So that might be something that council sees coming down the pipe in the future.
Okay,
So Tilly water, Sirlawn with treated water?
Oh, Greg, please.
Just to note that Lake No Resort, we also have each individual community association out there basically runs their own water out of the lake. So they're also not on the treated water. So for the most part, in all of the common areas and the different divisions out there. So,
okay, thank you. Okay, Kelly.
So from that comment, do they also get charged through the county, or are they charged directly to the EID? How's that work?
Greg,
so we, each individual association, homeowners association, pays for their own water, pumps their own water, and distributes their own water through that system. And we also pay the EID charge individually, each association. Individually, yeah, each board has their own budget line for that, for the water. So,
okay, thank you. Any further questions? Are we ready for first reading? Lynette, please.
I'll make the motion for first reading.
Yeah, thank you. All in favor of first reading, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Similarly, second reading. Bylaw 2052-23. Adina, please.
I'll make the motion for second reading.
Thank you. All in favor of second reading for this bylaw? That is carried as well. And then a motion for consent for third reading. Ellen, please. Thank you. All in favor to provide consent for third reading? That's carried as well. And then we go to motion for third reading. Greg, please.
I'll make that motion for third reading.
Thank you. All in favor of third reading? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. With that, we'll go to item number 10, I believe, administrative business. Is Maria available? Oh, actually, Lane is here. Could you take us through, let's go to 10.2.1, right? Or 10.3, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah, that's right, 10.3.
So there's a couple of items that I have on the agenda. The first one being an application that has come in again from the Rolling Hills Agricultural Society. This is for a funding request under our policy to take care of an emergency repair that's been required on their compressor system for their ice plant. So the information is before council. The Ag Society is aware that there is an expectation under the policy that organizations will be making a contribution towards the cost. For this type of a repair or request, the policy provides for a contribution from the county that ranges between 80 to 90%. Provided council is prepared to move forward with approving their request, then what is required is a motion to specify the actual dollar amount. The total project cost was $30,450. based on the 80 to 90%, the county's contribution would range between 24,360 and 27,486.
Kelly, please. I'm sorry, I had my mic off. Thanks, Lane. Yeah. Go ahead, Kelly.
So my question is, do we not collect any opinions? I mean, we have the request for decision, but do we not hear from an expert in the area that deems this emergent?
The system had failed. They had a leak in their system and it had to be repaired immediately. The contractor that they have obtained the quote from is the one that the Ag Society has had a long-standing maintenance relationship with for their system. And so they reached out, requested their assistance in taking care of the initial leak. When they were out, made that repair, he came back and said there's some additional things that should be completed before your next season begins as well. So,
And we have that documentation.
yes, that information is in the agenda package.
Okay, thank you.
I think we talked about it when we talked about the Scandia Hall, but what's the criteria for it being urgent? Because we have quite a few months before it would need to be used.
Well, I guess with this one, there's two different components. The first one is the initial repair, and that, of course, was an emergency because without the ice plant, the facility is not able to operate. What they are indicating, based on the information that the contractor has provided, is that there is additional work that is going to be required before they start the ice plant up again for the 2023-24 season. I think that it's a fairly clear indication that that would be considered urgent as well.
Arno?
Sorry, yeah, notwithstanding the seasonal timeframe. Dan, go ahead, Dan, please.
All right, thank you. One of the things about that ice plant, it runs off of R22 refrigerant. You can no longer buy R22 refrigerant. Some technicians have a small stock that they can use, but that's one of the issues with that thing right now. There's components that are failing, and if they fail and we lose more refrigerant, then we're really out of luck because eventually there won't be anything left to put back in. So there's another discussion of, do we change these components so that they're acceptable for a new refrigerant should the upgrade occur sooner than later? So if this happens again and we end up running out of R22, then we're done again.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Greg, you've got a comment?
Yeah, I guess this is a question for Dan. Now, this new upgrade of the $30,000, does that include, is that with new refrigerant or is it still using the old refrigerant?
The upgrade upcoming will be to change out components. It will not be changing out refrigerant, but the new components will be compatible with a new refrigerant when we upgrade the rest of it. So, but he says these components that are being replaced are about to fail as well. So it's the compressor is getting old and it's in bad shape.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Any other questions? Kelly, please.
Your opinion, Dan, are we putting bad money after good or good money after bad? I mean, does the compressor need to be replaced totally?
No, I think what they're planning now is a smart move. It changes out components that are going to fail, and it's a partial upgrade in preparation for a full upgrade down the road. And then again, maybe the compressor itself might be okay, and it's just the other components that have to be upgraded to handle a new refrigerant. So, and that's kind of what he's doing now. He's upgrading a portion of it so that we're partially upgraded down the road.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Lynette, please.
What might be the time frame of needing those new components?
Dan, have you got the answer to that, or Lane?
From what I got from his estimate there, the components he's changing is fairly imminent. He says they're bad and they're going to fail. But it didn't make sense to change them at that time because it would have been way more expensive and too long, and it would have required shutting the ice plant down for even longer. So it was decided to do it at a later date with a little bit more time and thought put into what gets changed and what it gets changed to, because different refrigerants require different components. So you almost have to pick the refrigerant that works before you pick the components you put in.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any further questions? Kelly, please.
Sorry, I think Holly also has a question. I wanted to ask about the one quote. I have seen this before, Dan. I've seen it before. We get locked into one refrigeration company. Is there any appetite for getting another quote, at least two quotes? I mean, we have one now. Is there an appetite to reach out for another quote?
I'm totally in favor of getting multiple quotes, and that's something we can definitely take back to them.
Okay, Holly, please. I see that hand. Can you hear me, Holly?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Okay, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. I think it's a good project, but I would still like to see when an application comes forward, there's an actual budget. I know they're doing lots of fundraising, and that's great, but I'd like to see where exactly they plan that money is going to come from, so we're actually looking at a budget of how they're going to include their portion of the funding.
Okay, thanks for that. How do we typically see that? Lane, do you have that information? Or?
Well, the information that was provided indicates what the total cost is. They've provided confirmation that they have funds in their account to cover off what the county wouldn't be covering under this program.
Right.
I don't know that there's much more information beyond what has already been provided that would really help make the decision.
Okay, yeah. Holly, please. Yeah, go ahead.
I understand what Blaine's saying, but I think we need to have a standard that when you're coming for money, we have to see a budget, because otherwise, with the campground, same thing. You can see they're doing things, but I think if we're giving money, we need a budget of how they're going to raise their portion and spend, so we have a similar situation for every application that comes in front of us.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Holly. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I get that for sure. But, and it's kind of a weird one because there's enough money in the accounts to cover it. So it's not like we're going to go working extra hard to raise more money for this. We technically have the money to do it. We could put a line item in there saying that this is how much we will contribute, which would be up to 100%. But there's a funding agreement there to allow for the county to pay for certain portions of these things. So we're basically asking, how much will you cover so that we don't have to cover 100%? Now, if you wanted to come in differently where there's a budget line item attached with a quote saying that we would pay up to 100%, I guess, we could do that. But right now, like I said, there's no extra fundraising required for us. The money is there. It's just we like to keep that money for other things, or different things that show up all the time. I don't want to deplete our accounts down too low, and especially if there's funds set aside for these kind of things. I'm okay with asking the way they have.
Okay, thank you. How do we want to proceed? Neil, please.
Where did your money come from that you already have?
We've done a lot of fundraising. Yep. We've done a lot of fundraising over the years. Our most recent one, I haven't got the final numbers yet, but that probably brought us in close to $10,000. We get money from our mill rate reg funding agreements, but we do a lot of fundraising, and there's a lot of money in there from a lot of the Hall Board has money. There's the Ag Society has money. The firm has money. All the different groups have their own different ways of earning money, but fundraising has been really successful in Rolling Hills over the years. The community's excellent buy-in, so that's mostly where our money comes from, outside of the money that the county gives us to operate on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. Lynette, the question?
In our information package, it says that they were asked MNP to send the financial statements for the last 3 years to the county. Do you have those, Lane?
Yes, we have received that information.
Okay. Okay, so the information we're asking for is we have the receipt of it. That's good. Greg, please.
So my question is, or my thoughts are, is this an emergency situation? If there are funds available to the Rolling Hills Ag Society to cover a good portion of this, I don't mean to take up them to spend the whole cash amount on this, but it being stated as an emergency, it is something that needs to be done. But when I look at an emergency, it's something of emergency funding, not the actual work being an emergency. It's the emergency funding. So I don't see this as an emergency funding situation, but I do feel that a percentage should be given by the county to help with this situation. The emergency amount, I don't think is valid in this case.
Okay, thank you, Ellen, and then Lynette. Oh, Matt, you had a call. Ellen, Lynette, and then.
Yeah, I see it. I see it a little bit differently. The criteria is quite clear that there is a component of an urgency, and to me, the $11,958.21 that was an emergency or an urgent repair, and the other one, I would say, would qualify more for the 66% and 75%. That is the $18,500, because that is sort of a pre-planned expense. So I think the two are a little bit different, if that makes sense.
Great. Thank you, Ellen. Lynette?
Well, I feel like what Matt was going to say was probably going to clarify, but I just wanted to clarify what Greg was saying. So you're thinking that the funding should only be like down to, what was it, the 65%, instead of it being as high as 80 to 90% of our contribution. Is that, yeah.
Okay. Matt, did you have a...
Yeah, I was just going to comment or remind council, we've seen this policy before. We've kind of got hung up on the definition of urgent and emergency before. It is on our work plan as we bring this policy forward for review to actually have a definition, what the prerequisites are for something falling in that urgent or emergent category, because it is, when I look at the policy, that category of emergency is probably the biggest one that could potentially be gamed by any organization. Well, I heard really encouraging things from the Dutchess Ag Society, putting a lot of effort into preventative maintenance programs that extend life. I think comments I've heard around the table about this fitting into that category 2 minor project facility life extension. You are extending the life of the existing system. It would be appropriate, I think, for the 66 to 75%. But it all depends on what you define as an emergency.
Thanks, Matt. Kelly?
Yeah, I tend to agree. And also, we haven't seen the community buy-in. So they have, 4-6 months to fundraise and to fix this situation for next year's season. And so I tend to agree that 65 to in that area would be appropriate. It's not mid-season and it's not an emergency, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? So we're ready to provide some direction with regard to a motion. Holly, please.
So I'm just going to clarify if we're looking at the whole motion at 66% or going with Ellen's where we would pay urgent on the one in January and then the facility extension for the second request or the second half of the request.
That has been the discussion, but I think we're open to, we'll need to deal with that through a motion, but that's been the discussion here among at least some of us. Lynette, please.
Going back to what Kelly mentioned before about getting another quote as well, do we want to see more quotes before we make this decision?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Just my thoughts are that that can be part of the motion that the organization would look after. But the important part now is to decide on a forward movement, right? So I will proceed with a motion that we support Rolling Hills Ag Society on this upgrade to the arena at the rate of 65% of the total expenditure.
66 is the policy.
66%, thank you.
Yeah. Is that for the...
And also ask for a minimum of a second quote, just to protect them and the organization. Okay?
Okay, thank you for the motion, Kelly. Any further discussion? Lynette, please.
Could we just get the full numbers then? If you're going to the 66%, how much is that going by that quote?
We won't know that till if there's also a request for an additional quote, so we won't actually be hard and fast on that till we've seen that, right? Lane, please.
Would you hold off on making the decision until you see a second quote, or are you just going to ask them to get a second quote and make their decision based on the lowest of the two quotes provided?
Yeah, I think so.
So if that's the case, then if a second quote comes in higher, then you know what your 66% contribution is going to be. It would be capped at $20,097.
Right.
It wouldn't go higher than that.
Yeah, we have a minimum number.
Correct.
Or a maximum number, yeah. Okay, any further questions? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Lane, go ahead.
So maybe just following up on the comments about asking the organizations to come in with the budget, we'll certainly do that. Any future requests that come in, I'll make sure that they do provide a detailed budget for the total project, where their funds are coming in from, so that there is no question about what the project will consist of.
Mm-hmm. Are we also kind of establishing a pattern that in cases where it is not emergent, that we would like to see at least 2 quotes, right? And I think in the future that would be healthy for us to see that ahead of time, because so that it isn't those can be jiggered as well if it's just a routine thing or a process, right? So that's noted, Lane. That makes sense. Eh? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Are we ready to move to 10.4? Lane, please.
So part of council's role is to make sure that there's opportunities to reach out to and engage with the community. Over the years, there's been different efforts made in trying to fulfill that function of liaising and engaging with the community. Historically, the county used to have an annual information meeting. A decision was made after the last one that took place in Bassano in 2017 that it wasn't, while it's important to make information available, the annual information meeting in the format that was being applied at that time wasn't filling the purpose that it was intended to fulfill based on the very limited participation rates from the public. Since then, there have been efforts made to make sure that information is being available and that we're inviting input from the public in through a variety of different ways that have been used since that time. There's been some questions raised as to whether or not it would be appropriate to again consider holding some kind of an information meeting and see if there's a way to increase the participation rate and exchange of information that takes place during those meetings. What we have provided for council provides some history on how that meeting took place in the past, what the level of participation was. Those meetings traditionally focused on the year that has passed instead of forward-looking. If there's going to be an interest that council has in approaching something of that nature again, we would suggest that the focus be forward-looking, where you outline some of the things that are facing the organization and on which council would like to receive feedback from the public on, so that you have a sense as to what the public's position is on things before decisions are made on things that would have an impact potentially on the residents of the county. So what we're asking is, does council want us to move forward with holding some kind of an information meeting again in the future? And if so, what suggestions do you have as to how we could add some new life to that process and increase the quality of the information that is shared both with the public and coming back from the public?
Thanks for that. Excuse me, Lane. What is our response? I think that one of the things that I think is critical in terms of the expectation of participation is timing seasonally. I mean, we represent a large group of people who, as soon as the snow disappears, will be increasingly busy with activity related to spring, but seeding and all that kind of thing. So we're running into a time crunch probably for this spring, but I'm not saying we can't do it. Any response or to the presentation this morning? Dan, please.
What if we were to advertise one of our regular council meetings as an AGM, and we could set that meeting up so that it was an AGM of sorts, public engagement meeting, if there's no one that's showing up to these things, then it's not a big time effort for us. We're going to be there for a meeting anyways. If a lot of people show up, well, we know from recent experience, we can handle about 40 people showing up and asking questions in chambers. And if much more than that shows up, then we know there's definitely a desire to host one in a bigger venue.
Okay, that's an interesting idea, Dan. Kelly, you have a response to that?
Just to add on to Dan, I like the idea. I also like the idea of it being sent out in the airwaves so that far out populations like the west side can also listen in and be part of an AGM. So we have the technology here, and we could have participants enact like you are as well today, Dan and Holly, and whoever else is listening.
So your thinking on that would be that we simply allocate some time within our regular council meeting, either, well, anywhere, an allocated period of time where we discuss what we've talked about here, some review of the previous year and some looking forward, eh? Dan and Holly?
Yeah, that's kind of what I would think. Look at the historical meetings. There's definitely some areas where it's a lot slower than others. Try to pick a timeline where there's generally slow meetings, and then we can just piggyback off of a regular meeting or cancel one meeting and turn it into an AGM of sorts.
Okay, thank you. Holly, please.
What I like about Dan's idea is it could happen sooner. And I think sometimes people have been asking people came to council last time. Some of them asked to have an open house so they can ask more questions and talk to us. So I appreciate the fact that could happen on a sooner basis than going with an AGM, which would be further away. My only concern would be timing. People have also said it's hard to take time off work. They would prefer something in the evening. So I throw that out there as well.
Right. Matt? Oh.
Yeah, so I love Councillor Short's idea because it kind of tests the waters. Like these meetings historically had taken up a lot of council and staff time preparing for, and to have a lackluster turnout. I mean, we want to deliver value for our ratepayers, and spending effort that doesn't pay off, doesn't make sense. So we could even consider, because I have also heard that timing is an issue for folks. You could even consider doing two of these things, or two opportunities, one during the day, and we reschedule a regular council meeting for later in the day. You know, maybe we start at 5:30, or we start regular council meeting at 4 and open up the open house, or whatever you want to call it, at 6 to give the nighttime crowd an opportunity in. Lots of room to be flexible with it if we have enough lead time to notify the public that we're monkeying around with our council meeting schedule.
Right, thank you. And what does that entail? How much lead time do we need to spin something up?
Oh, now you're testing me, but I think if we had 2 weeks lead time to change schedule, that's enough to let people arrange schedules.
Yeah, basically it's a public notification is what you're thinking. Okay, that's good. Greg, please.
Yeah, from what I've been hearing from people, ratepayers, is it can be difficult for them to come during the day in the morning. So I do agree that an opportunity to meet with the public in an evening-ish type of scenario would be advantageous for us. That gives maybe a much broader demographic that will come. And I have one concern in that, you know, at one of our council meetings, when it was open to the public, we were out of space. It was really tight in here. People were out in the foyer, you know, and it was difficult to probably hear out there. And I'm just wondering if there's some kind of maybe different space that we could do that. I'm just throwing it out there that maybe our council chambers isn't large enough for such an endeavor.
Okay, thank you. That's a good consideration. Adina, please.
Just a comment, excuse me, just a comment on Greg's comment about people in the foyer. I think those that were in the foyer talking did that by their own choice. There was room for them. There were empty chairs. They chose to stand out there and talk.
Okay, that's fair. I think, go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I like the idea of council chambers, because usually we don't get, again, the other open houses would get 3 participants. And I mean, really, the kind of work that it entails, I'm in favor of doing it right here in council chambers.
I think that's a good idea. Neil and then Greg.
Yeah, I think if we got 40 people, it would be a tremendous success.
Yeah.
So council chambers is fine with me. I like your evening idea too.
Yeah.
It gives them a chance. We have really nothing to lose.
No, I think that's a good idea. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, in discussing this, I think it is, I think we do need to maybe rework maybe the setup. If we're going to do this, we can pull this table forward. We could allow more chairs in here if we needed. I think it is also very important that we do it in council chambers for the AV situation. So,
yeah, Dan, thanks, Greg. Dan, please.
So when we advertise this out, we can offer for those that can't get the time off or can't make it at that day or whatnot, that they can send their questions in as part of the question period or however that would work. And an added benefit of doing it this way would be that folks would realize that there is a question period and that every single meeting is actually open for them to ask us and hold us accountable for our decisions, and they do have input and they've always had input, and this would be a great way for them to realize that it's always there for them.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Dan. And now, just in terms of logistically, could we do a daytime and evening meeting on the same day? Or are you thinking that we simply move a regular council meeting into the evening session? Or, I mean, to me, there might be some efficiency in doing it on the same day, so that I can, but your comments on that.
Yeah, and staff would take guidance from council on your preference on that. That's certainly an option. I was thinking April 6th, we'll have the audited financial statement presentation from the auditor. That could be a good day to hold it. And if councillors are available to stick around all day and keep going at 5:30 or 6 at night, it's certainly an option. So we'll take council's guidance on that. I would suggest we don't look at doing anything before, well, I guess, yeah, April 6th would be the next meeting anyways. And if April 6th doesn't work, we could do it on the 20th. I think you probably want to get it on the books quicker with spring heading at us quick here.
I would agree that probably if an April date is what we're looking for, that the next 2 weeks from today would be the April 6th would be if that's doable and we can make it work. I mean, I think as we've indicated, there has been an interest in what we're doing and concern about attendance and reporting. Let's try to respond to that as quickly as we can. If that works for staff, I think I like the idea. Adina, please.
I'm just going to say, I know it's not all about me, but I'm unable to attend on the 6th.
Okay. Thank you. The other one alternative is in April is the 20th. Neil, please.
Are you looking for a motion? Because I'm ready to make it. If we need a motion on this.
We would need a motion on it. So I think we're open to that if we kind of feel like we have a direction on it. Go ahead, Neil. If you
I will move that we hold the meeting on either the 6th or the 20th or whatever date works, and let staff proceed with 2 meetings.
Okay, thanks. From an availability issue relative to the season we're in, I like the 6th better than the 20th, because by the 20th of April, if the weather forecast is accurate at all, it's going to be pretty busy by the 20th, because there will be a lot of pent-up activity that will happen when the snow disappears, and that might not be by the 6th, which would be to our benefit. But I also appreciate in terms of our availability, you know, what we can make work there. So we have a motion that it be either the 6th or the 20th. Neil, you move that. Yeah, Lane, you've got to go ahead.
I guess I would suggest that you nail down the date. It should be, the motion should state what date it's going to take place.
We're on the same page. That's what I'm hesitating about. Are we ready to, can we pick one of the dates? And I appreciate the fact that some of us won't be here on the 6th, but I think the 20th is going to be pretty hard to get people's attention if the weather's nice. Go ahead.
Neil, would you entertain a change to go with the 6th in your motion?
Okay. We could change. Matt, what's the impact of changing? The 6th is our next standard council.
Yeah, I think if you want to change a council meeting date, you got to leave the 6th as it is because that's already planned for. We got auditors showing up. If you wanted to do a separate meeting on the 10th, I mean, you could potentially do that. But I think the idea proposed by Councillor Short was you piggyback on an existing meeting. So what I would propose, this isn't going to be anything fancy in terms of a meeting. It's really teasing folks in here for a Q&A session. So we've already got question period on the agenda. We would just advertise that question period as happening at, let's say, 11 or whatever times available on the agenda. Maybe Ariana can feverishly look at what time we're having the auditor come in and other delegation times, but we advertised the actual question period time for the 6th. And if we want to do it in the evening as well, we say what time that's going to be, 6 or whatever the motion, whatever Councillor Johnson wants that to read.
Well, if the 6th works, have at it. I mean, I'm totally flexible.
Okay, so Greg, you had a comment first.
Yeah, remember that is spring break for kids in our region with grasslands. You know, I don't know how many people are going away over Easter. Well, they don't call it Easter anymore. They call it spring break, but that is the holiday that week.
Look around you. Is there a better place for a holiday? No. I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, that's right. But what I like about Dan's suggestion, I see your hand, Holly, we'll ask for you next, but making this a part of our routine activity, I think is a good thing, recognizing that our intention is to respond to the community's need for and desire for information on an ongoing basis. And if we need to do more than this later, we can do that. So I don't think we need to view this as a big production that can only happen once. We're trying to encourage people to, and also indicate that we're available on a regular basis, right? Holly, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just questioning the calendar because I know some schools have their break after Christmas as well, and I believe the Catholic school has it after Easter. So I think we can't get everybody, as you're saying. So we just have to pick a day and go with it.
I think that's probably a good advice. If Neil, are you prepared to make peg the 6th for this? Okay, thank you. Matt, you had a further comment?
Yeah, the 6th would be adequate. We'd probably be looking at the open house or question period portion being in the afternoon, just to give our public time and council time to respond to questions. The morning is quite busy with auditor at 11 and a public hearing beginning at 11:30. So I would suggest we advertise a question period beginning at 1 and then again at 6 on the 6th, if that's agreeable.
Okay, I think Neil indicates that it is, and that's detail around the direction of the motion. So any further comments or questions? Greg, please.
I just want to reiterate that is Monday, Thursday before Good Friday, so just saying that. And I think the 20th is more appropriate.
Good point that we didn't hear the first time you suggested that, Neil. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think even in terms of people not being able to be here because of the weather, say on the 20th, maybe that consideration is not as significant as we thought. In the context of the fact that we will do this when we need to do it, we want to encourage people to participate with us. So this is not a one-time event necessarily. So further direction you want. The motion is made. Will all in favor of April the 6th, please indicate your support. Just let's do this again. All in favor of April the 6th? Okay, opposed? That motion is carried, so it will be April the 6th. So that's good. I think we made a decision. Thank you, Lane. Appreciate your input. I'm going to suggest that we are 5 minutes to 11, that we take a 5-minute break and proceed. I am going to call this meeting back to order. And we'll go to item number 9.1, our update with the Bassano Municipal Collaboration Framework Recreation. Amanda Davis and Mayor Morey, welcome. Pleased to have you here this morning. I think we all know each other in the room, do we? The time is yours. Go ahead. Yeah, move close to the mics because we're having a little bit of trouble hearing them from that spot this morning, I think.
Okay, I'll keep this fairly short on my behalf. I just wanted to express our appreciation for the agreements and how we get along with the County of Newell. It's a collaboration agreement, and not just a collaboration agreement, it's just everything in general. We just get along well, and especially on the recreation side, I can say that, you know, anytime that I'm out and about in the community and there's something comes up, I'm the first one, and it's expressed a lot that you guys do what you do for us, and we just really appreciate that, and I just want to thank everybody for that. So that's what I got. So
thank you. Appreciate that very much, and know that we value that relationship as much. At least we think a lot gets done because people work together, and we appreciate your comment on that this morning. Thank you.
So with that being said, is that the end of our delegation?
Pardon me?
With that being said, is it the end of our delegation? Okay, fine. Anyways, thank you for having us this morning. This is our annual presentation back to the county. So typically we do a review of what was completed last year for recreation, and then we like to go through what our plans are for 2023. So there was supplemental information that was probably provided in your council package. I'll just spend a few minutes going through that, and please ask any questions that you might have. So if we reflect back on what happened in 2022, we had an action plan where we were looking at doing some interactions with our user groups in order to get them in line with the plan for our recreation and leisure master plan that was approved by both councils late last year. So we didn't negotiate new agreements, but what we did was spend a lot of time building relationships with these user groups, which we didn't previously have, which did prove to be beneficial because it has allowed us to actually get into the facilities and see where there may be some issues that we all need to plan around and work to upgrade. And then just actually supporting them, getting some of their operating and marketing out to improve the usership at facilities, which was one of the main objectives. We'll continue doing that in 2023 moving forward. All of this was part of our plan anyhow, getting everybody working together. In addition to that, we ran our first professional barbecue competition, which was a great success for our region. There were 30 teams that came in from Alberta and Saskatchewan to participate. So they'll run that through on their tallies, kind of like you would in rodeos, as far as I understand, Irv. And they will continue to compete nationally. So the result of that, we ended up earning $9,700 to go towards energy efficiency upgrades at our community hall, which then offsets the cost for both of our municipalities moving forward. There were probably 200 to 250 people that came out for the barbecue competition last year. We're anticipating more in 2023, and Barbecue on the Bow Society has agreed to partner with us again and contribute financially to making this a success. So it wouldn't be as exciting as a pro barbecue competition if you didn't have the pro competition behind you. So fortunately, they like working with our municipalities and the structure that we've brought to the competition itself. When we look at what we accomplished with the pool in 2022, there was a little bit of a disruption at the beginning of the season. The pool liner split, which was unexpected. So that put us at about a 3-week delay. However, once we got that repaired, we did still see around 5,000 people come through the facility, and we did swimming lessons for 215 youth. So I'd say that's still a pretty good accomplishment for that delay in the year. We worked through a lot of operational changes at the pool, and this came into leadership for the youth and mentorship of the pool students. So by the time we got to August, they were doing different YouTube videos and things for us that we'll be implementing this year to help promote the pool and really just engage different generations moving forward. And getting them involved in that is a challenge on its own, because sometimes everybody thinks we're just here to do lifeguarding, but it's coming around. So we had a good pool season, and then other than that, we basically just worked on some facility cleanup and upgrades. We did one energy efficiency lighting project at the recreation complex. So we did receive an MCCAC grant for that, which offset our combined cost by $12,500. Operationally, last year, the total cost that came in for each partner was $197,000, which was 2.7% under our projected budget. Thankfully, I'd rather be a little bit under than a little bit over. And then the total capital cost between each municipality was $39,000. So we were happy by the end of the year in 2022. Was there any questions by County Council about what happened?
Any questions from Councillor? Kelly, please.
I have a tough question. I think it's one that I've heard in the community, and that is around the barbecue contest. We have a lot of community support and donations. I've seen it, I've felt it. A question out there is, are the town staff paid for their involvement, or are they volunteering as well? And you can see why I'm asking the question, I think.
I didn't even press off and it just shuts off on its own. Okay, thank you. In some instances, town staff are compensated. So if we're setting up for the event that is something that the town has put on, our staff are going to be out there setting up the event. I spent the entire weekend there. Am I charging for my time? No, I am there to provide support to the municipality. If I've asked our staff to come in and run site security, they are being paid. And this is an event that was facilitated and hosted by the town. So this isn't one of those instances where an organization, let's just say as minor hockey, is putting on an event that's ran by minor hockey. This is an event that has been put on by the town. So when employees are called in, they are paid. You're welcome.
Good, thank you. Any further questions? Any other questions? Greg, please.
Yeah, with regards to the smoker, when the people came in and set up and did it was a couple-day event probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Did they stay in the area? Did they camp? Did they stay at the hotel?
Sure. So what we did is we actually set up at the campground and the community hall campground, or the community hall parking lot. So we blocked off that entire part of our main street. So the actual barbecue competitors that were on the pro side, they set up in the campground, the parking lot at the community hall, and then there's a vacant lot across the street that we got agreement to use. So that's where the teams stay for the weekend. And then the other people that came in and out, I would say is probably more of a day trip, and then local people. Yes.
Thanks. Go ahead, Irv. Yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, part of the fee that those professional guys pay that stay in the campground, part of their fee does go towards camping when they pay into it. And as well, the 2 KCBS representatives are put up at the motel uptown, not by us, but by the Barbecue and Boat Association.
So at the end of the day, for the barbecue competition, it didn't cost either municipality anything more than the time that we put in through shared administration and public works, and turned almost a $10,000 profit, which is part of what we were trying to accomplish with our recreation and leisure master plan.
Great, thanks. Lynette, please.
Mine was about your pool. It seems like one of the comments was your lifeguards and stuff, that you can't run a lot of the stuff in May and June because they're still in school. Are you attempting to groom some of those ones as them becoming post-secondary students, that they will be, because they would be available May, June? So I'm hoping they're going that direction.
Certainly, and thank you for the question. Part of that operations master plan for the pool is specifically around employee retention at the pool. And when we've put in this leadership and mentorship program, it is to start getting kids from elementary school forward. So we are working closely with the school in order to try and have more returning employees. Part of the challenge that we're already experiencing for 2023 is that we don't have enough senior guards that have applied, and we cannot operate the pool without an adequate number of senior guards. When we put in the in-house training last year, which is not something that we previously offered, we looked at that as an incentive for employees to come back, because I mean, on average, that would save households over $500 per child to do the training in-house. So we saw that as a competitive advantage for our pool. Well, maybe some of the kids didn't have to pay that themselves, so it wasn't as exciting, thinking, hey, I'm getting my in-house training done for free and I know our facility and all of these sorts of things. So when we looked at the comparison with wages, whether people are being employed with the Public Works Department at the county and or with the EID, pool rates are almost $6 less per hour. So we've had to adjust that moving into the 2023 season and give a returning bonus. When I say bonus, 25 cents per hour is not necessarily a like knock it out of the park bonus, but we still have to manage it within the budget. So hopefully with some of the additional opportunities that they have by doing YouTube videos and TikToks and things that allow them to have fun, in-house training, mentorship, and youth development, we will get exactly what you're asking for. Every effort is being put in to ensure that we have it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Craig, please.
One suggestion on the pool. Now, I don't know if this can be done or not, and I know that senior guards are an issue trying to find them, and I know the Brooks pool also has quite a job to try and find senior guards. With the Bassano pool, both my girls, were senior guards at the Bassano pool. They drove from the resort to Bassano every day. And it was a stretch because of cost of fuel and things like that. Is there any idea of maybe trying to compensate out of town people that maybe senior guards that would want to work at an outdoor pool, kind of attract them maybe from the Brooks area or from further reaching outside of the county? Because it was a great experience for them, but that was a stretch as far as cost-wise for them.
Yeah, thanks for that idea. We haven't contemplated it, but it's not to say that we can't. There were guards that were coming from Strathmore and Brooks for 2022 season, so perhaps that's something we do need to evaluate. We do engage with the Brooks pool to bring in trainers and other supports, and just to see if we can even piggyback on guards so that if they're not getting enough hours at either facility, that tops them up too. But it's something for us to add in if we continue to get strapped for this season, which hopefully we don't, but right now we are. So don't be alarmed when you see an ad that goes out in the Brooks Bulletin that says, we can't operate the pool in 2023 without a few more guards, because that's going to be issued today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Were there any other questions for the 2022 report?
Seeing none.
continue on.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
so for 2023, the plan is still the same thing. We're working on our master plan, and that's implementation of collaboration with our user groups. We have over 30 of them that are working in our facilities, looking at ways of lowering the operating costs of our facilities, resulting in different capital upgrades, and then maximizing usership at the facilities. Every year when we come and present, because there's no reason to change something until we actually have it fully functioning and operating. There's a couple of major capital upgrades we have to do this year. So starting with the pool, we do have to do a liner replacement, which is 7 years earlier than projected in our capital plan. It was determined that we will do the repair at the beginning of the season, and then we'll complete the full liner at the end of the season, just because we don't want to disrupt and lose a full season. Mind you, if we can't get guards, maybe all of that will change, but that's a worst case scenario. That planned expenditure is $310,000 to do that liner upgrade. We have partnered with the Bassano Community Enhancement Society, and we've submitted a CFIP application for $150,000. If we're successful with that, of course, it goes to offset both partners' cost for it. If not, the request is that both partners split it. We cannot operate the pool without that liner, so I think we all know that it's an urgent go-in type of situation. Then we have a couple of other capital upgrades. We have another MCCAC grant that we got to do lighting at the arena. However, when we started to do that installation, or at least prep for it, we had a fire inspection done by our regional fire chief and found out that we have to do a fireproofing upgrade in the basement and upgrade the ventilation system to bring it to code before we can do the lighting. So that small project has ballooned to nearly $100,000, but fortunately we did get a little bit of an MCCAC grant. So that is in the capital plan this year when you look at the roughly $250,000 ask between each of the communities. And then we will move forward with our barbecue competition, implementing that pool operations plan to expand on the questions that you had asked earlier. And we are working on doing a complete overhaul of each one of our recreational facilities. So our Public Works Department is starting first with the rec complex, which is the golf bowl curl facility. We really haven't had much maintenance in there over the past, I'd say, 5 years. This is one of the reasons why we needed that master plan and the collaboration with our user groups. So basically they're going in from top to bottom, fixing everything from door jams to painting and fixing holes in walls to identify what further capital problems may be in these facilities. So we'll do an operations plan for each one of them, which will be the outcome of the end of the year. So overall, our operation budget that covers 5 specific departments in Bassano, being the airport, the Thrive Fitness Center, parks and recreation, parks that are applicable to playground parks, and the arenas, is just over $240,000, and then the $245,000 for the capital upgrade. That is our request this season moving forward. Thank you. Oh, I have one more thing. Sorry. We are working collaboratively with members from the county right now on doing an area structure plan for the airport. Once that area structure plan is complete, then we will look at how we need to either subdivide and close and build new lots out there to promote further development, which falls under our ICF on the recreation side.
Right. Thank you. Any questions? No questions? Matt, please.
I just wanted to thank Amanda and Mayor Morey. You've got the package that Amanda had prepared for us. It's always very detailed. There's not much left to the imagination there, and it's always been really nice working with Amanda, having that level of detail. Likewise, at the end of the year, we get very detailed reporting back, so we've got a high degree of confidence in the work that's being done through the partnership there. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, just to reiterate again, we appreciate the positive, strong two-way working relationship and the things we can get done together. So thank you very much. Irv, please.
One more little thing. I think forthcoming, probably do it at joint shared service, but so be prepared. I think I'm going to issue a municipal challenge, if you call it that, for the barbecue competition, for the amateur steak competition. So be forewarned, be forewarned. Put a team together. If steak is there, we're having 2 competitions this year, rather than one's professional, one's the professional is a new one, the amateur one we had last year, but just want to expand on that a little bit. So very good thinking.
Might have to start bumping up our practice runs a little bit ahead of time. Yeah. Should be good for us. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming in this morning. Thank you. Let's, Maria, please. We'll move to item number 10.2. Welcome, Maria. We've got our public hearing at 11:30, so we'll carry on in the meantime with beginning with 10.2, the road closure approval to proceed.
Okay, thank you. This road closure approval to proceed is for road closure and lease. The purpose of this application is to close the road allowances outlined in the map that's shown to facilitate a new and existing irrigation practices. The policy direction that should be considered is the Municipal Government Act, as well as the county road allowance closure process. The subject lands are in Division 6, southeast of the town of Bassano, and all of the parcels in this area are in the agriculture land use district of the land use bylaw. The applicant would like to install a wiper pivot between the northeast of 32 and the northwest of 33, 1917. So that would mean that the road allowance is being irrigated. There is also existing irrigation on the road allowances adjacent to the north of the northeast of 31, 1917, the east of the northeast of 6, 2017. So as part of this application, we were taking the opportunity to clean up some existing encroachments. This application was circulated to internal departments. There was a little bit of discussion, but there was no major concerns with the closure and lease of this road allowance or these road allowances. These closures also do not affect legal access to any of the parcels, as there's access from both sides. So the response options are to provide approval to proceed with the road closure and lease. This would mean that we would set a public hearing for the April 20th meeting. At that meeting, if council wishes, we could proceed with first reading, and then we would send it to Alberta Transportation for approval. If council wishes to refuse the road closure application, then the process will stop here. Or there could be amendments made if council wishes. And it is recommended that the approval to proceed go ahead, and we set the public hearing for April 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any questions? Neil, please.
Is it, are you recommending sale or lease?
Lease for all of these road allowances.
Good. Okay, thanks. Greg?
Just clarify, are these actually roads now? Are they being farmed currently? Or I know I see that yeah, they've got the wiper pivot is going to irrigate that road allowance. Now, what's happening? What's the status of those right now?
Go ahead, Maria, please.
That's a good question. So the two road allowances on the west side of the map are currently being irrigated. So there is no road there. The mile long between 32 and 33 is just an undeveloped road allowance. So it is not being irrigated currently, but the applicant has applied to the EID to increase their irrigation acres. They'd like to install that pivot. And we have been working with the EID. So prior to any approvals being made on their end, they require that the applicant comes and closes the road allowance. So we're trying to kind of get ahead of that game now, which wasn't done in the past.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Holly, please. I see that hand.
Hi, Maria. I'm just wondering how value is determined when someone is leasing a road allowance. Is it based on the new rates that we set for land not long ago, or what's it based on?
Go ahead, Maria, please.
The road allowance lease is based on the road closure policy. So the lease rate right now is set at $100 per mile or portion thereof. So that's what the lease would be. And then we ask that the applicant pay for 10 years, for a 10-year period. So then it would be $1,000 per mile or portion thereof for that 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Kelly? Motion? Go ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the lease of these road allowances and to get it out into circulation so that we can hear back from anybody who has a concern.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve as recommended. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Maria. We're about 2 or 3 minutes prior to our public hearing beginning, so I'll suggest we take a 2-minute break and be back in time for the 11:30 public hearing. I'll reconvene this meeting. We're just a little bit late starting our public hearing, but we will begin with a motion. We need a motion to move into a public hearing. Ellen, all in favor that we move to a public hearing, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. And I will welcome everyone who's coming to attend today. Do we have anyone on the electronic system joining us for this at this point, Susan?
We currently have 13 people viewing, but there are no questions in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Welcome to everyone. I'm going to suggest that we have introductions in the room here, beginning with Neil. If you'd start, please.
Neil Johnson, Councillor Division 10.
Ellen Unra, and I represent the residents in Division 7 around the village of Rosemary.
Good morning, Greg Screever, Division 5, Castles and Lake New Resort.
Morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from the west side of the county.
And I'm Arno Dirksen from Division 9, the Gem area.
Good morning, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, Adina Scandrup, Division 2, around the hamlet of Tilly.
Lynette Kopp, I'm Division 3, Patricia Millicent area.
Cheryl Page, Planning and Development Assistant.
Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Sandra Stanway Brooks Bulletin.
Hello, I'm Maria Jackson, the Supervisor of Planning and Development.
I'm Dan Short from Division 1, Rolling Hills.
Holly Johnson, Division 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Go ahead.
Harold Stedel, resident of Tilly.
Sean McKay, Newell Regional Landfill.
Okay, Kendra Johnston, Newell Regional Landfill.
Tony Stidle, Mayor of Village Duchess.
Oh, Charles from Remedics.
Ming from Remedics.
Barry Flood, the CEO with Remedics Remediation Services.
I'm Terry Dolan, a ratepayer.
Thank you and welcome all to our public hearing this morning. And with that, we will turn the time over to Maria Jackson, please, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. This public hearing is for an application that was submitted to redesignate 1.04.73 acre portion of the southwest of 42318, as shown on the maps, which I can pull up here. There we go. From Agriculture General District to Industrial General District in the land use bylaw. The recommendation from staff is that this public hearing, once this public hearing has happened and people have spoken if they wish, that it be recessed to allow for additional time for affected parties to comment, and then reconvened at the April 6th regular council meeting. It is then, should no objections be heard at that time, that second and third reading be given to bylaw 2049-23 to redesignate this portion of land to Industrial General District. The subject parcel is in Division 9, 14 kilometers north of the town of Bassano. All parcels surrounding the proposed location are in the Agriculture General District. The closest residence is 2 kilometers away from the location and belongs to the applicant. The Industrial General District would allow for the construction of a Class 2 non-hazardous waste landfill. The Class 2 landfill requires approval by Alberta Environment and Parks under the Alberta Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act to accept non-hazardous industrial waste and non-dangerous oil field waste. The applicant has stated that the landfill would not be approved to accept residential and municipal waste, liquids, or hazardous material. The primary waste streams for the proposed facility would be waste generated in the oil and gas industry because of drilling, regular operations, and decommissioning activities. If the land use amendment bylaw is passed by council and receives second and third reading, then the applicant can apply for the development permit through the County of Newell and move forward with approval from Alberta Environment and Parks. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Kelly, please.
Maria, how many kilometers from this office would this site be? Yes. This is a question and answer period, so I'm asking the question.
To the Newell Regional Landfill. How far is it? How far do you drive approximately to get here? How many kilometers?
I would suggest that it would be 60 to 65 kilometers from this office to the site.
Okay.
Okay. I'm making a point here. I have questions and have received feedback from area residents. So not all these questions are mine. I'm just making a point. Access. Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of process, this is a public hearing, so it is an opportunity for council to receive input from the public. Yeah.
And that's why I asked the question. Okay.
Okay. From the public rather than from council?
Okay.
Okay.
I will let the folks online ask the questions then.
Yeah, for this period of time. Yeah, please. Okay, so well, let's hear first from anyone who's in opposition. Pardon me, in opposition to the bylaw proposal. That is that is the procedure we typically follow in a public hearing. So if anyone in the public or online wants to speak and make a presentation in opposition to the proposal, that is welcome now, please. Oh, Maria, please.
I'll just add one thing that there is also the opportunity to speak at the April 6th meeting, which I do believe that some of the people in attendance would like to speak potentially then.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point of clarification. Thank you for that, Maria. So there will be another opportunity, but if anyone wants to make a presentation this morning in opposition, they're welcome to do that. Yeah, as well as the applicant will have an opportunity to speak to if you want to make a further presentation. But first, I think we'll take opposition, and then we'll hear from the those in favor of the applicant. Seeing none, we'll move directly to the recess. Does the applicant wish to speak today or in the future? Any future? Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good. So in that case, I think we're ready to move to recess unless there are further comments. And Greg, please.
Is there an opportunity for us to ask questions at this point, or is this
yeah, to staff? There is, yeah.
Okay, I think my question is more for the proposal, not necessarily to staff.
Okay, that's good. And Kelly, you started to ask some questions before. Do you wish to ask questions to staff now, or? Sure. Okay.
Maria, the road past the proposed site is a paved road. What strength or what quality of road is that?
Go ahead, Maria, please.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good question that I don't have the answer to. I do know that it's a paved road, but that is something that I will take note of and come back with the answer to for the April 6th public hearing, if that's okay.
Sure,
or unless Mark can hear. Mark is here.
Do you hear the question, Mark? Sure. Okay. Do you?
So yes, Duck Lake Road was paved, I want to say about 10 years ago, and it's in very good condition. There's few defects other than typical cracking, small oxidization of the asphalt. It's designed for moving commodities to and from markets and would be suitable for servicing this site. I don't know the whole thing where the road approach is proposed from on the site, if it's from Duck Lake, but that's the only.
All weather.
All weather.
Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you, Mark. Maria.
I guess it's probably important to note that this application is for the land use amendment. And then when it comes to the development permit stage, that's when we can add conditions as far as road upgrades. We can review the road approach and ensure that that meets the standard for what the actual development that's happening requires.
Thank you for that. Any others? Do you have other more comments or questions, Kelly?
No, I think I'll rest for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, I think we're prepared for a motion to recess if that's if someone in council is prepared to make that motion. Ellen, thank you. All in favor that we recess till April the 6th, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, and thank you for your presence here this morning and participation with us. We'll reconvene on April the 6th. Yeah. Let's move on our agenda back to item 9.2. Brooks Regional Economic Development Update. You're going to take us through that, Maria? Oh, 10. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. 10.2 road closure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is another road closure approval to proceed. This one is for road closure and sale. The purpose of this application is to close the road allowance between the southeast of 1712 and the southwest of 161712, and sell to the applicant to be consolidated with the parcel in the southeast of 17. The recommended action would be that council move the application be advertised for public hearing on April 20th. The subject lands are located in Division 2, east of the hamlet of Tilly. The applicant has an easement through the southeast of 16 to allow access to EID water to their parcel. The applicant would be encroaching on the road allowance with a pipe that would be used to fill the dugout and would like to purchase the lands to consolidate with their title. The road allowance is used to access the parcel in the southwest of 16, and access to the southeast of 17 is directly from Township Road 17-2. The road allowance, this section of road allowance is cut off by the CPR rail line and Highway 1A to the north. And the developed Township Road 17-2 has an established railroad crossing and junction with Highway 1A to the west of this road allowance. The application was circulated to internal departments. There were no concerns with the closure and sale of the road allowance. The county assessor has reviewed the proposed road closure and has determined that fair market value for the road allowance would be $3,000 per acre. The proposed road closure contains approximately 1.1 acres, so the total purchase price would be $3,300. Should council wish to proceed with the road closure and sale, the applicant will be responsible for purchasing the road allowance at fair market value and all costs associated with surveying and consolidation. Typically, staff would not recommend road closure and sale. In this case, because of where the rail line and Highway 1A is, and because there's already an established crossing, I do think that this sale has merit for council to consider. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, Maria. Questions? Ellen, you've got a question. Go ahead.
However, things can always change. So would it matter if it was a lease instead of a sale? Like, would that be detrimental for the purchaser?
Go ahead, Maria, if you've got a comment on that.
That's something that I could definitely discuss with the applicant. Because they're encroaching on the road allowance with a pipe, then we would enter into an agreement, an encroachment agreement with them for that parcel, or do the lease. And that's something we can explore. Should council decide not to go with the sale, you bet.
Okay. Any other questions? Neil, please.
I think it's worth maybe checking out that avenue. Because like Ellen says, you never know what's coming down the pipe 20 years from now. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I would prefer a lease.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Lynette, please.
Do we need to be can you hear me? Okay. Do we need to be concerned with road access or an access to the other side? Like, how do they actually access the other like the little triangle?
Go ahead, Maria. Yeah.
The existing access to this triangle is from the road allowance, which can stay as is. There is also access to the southeast of 17 from this approach off of Township Road 17-2. So if the sale would happen, then this would be consolidated with the triangle, and that would all be on the same parcel.
Okay, any other, Kelly, got a question?
Can you explain your comment that it has merit? What are the merits to selling in this particular case, which is not our practice?
Go ahead, Maria, please.
Because of the location and how this road allowance is cut off by the CPR rail and highway number 1, it's CP rail would be okay with an additional crossing at that part. So the likelihood of this portion of road to be developed is very, very unlikely.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, the way this looks, it doesn't go anywhere except up to a railroad line without a crossing. And where would the next crossing be, or did you answer that already? It's to the east, right? Kelly, you've got a further question?
So then the total package would be how large, Maria? The triangle piece, if it was all consolidated into one title? Any? Not sure. Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't know exactly how big that parcel is, but it is a couple of acres, I suppose. And so then it would be adding approximately 1.1 acres to this parcel. And then the established crossing is right here, and it is a controlled crossing with the rail line.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, go ahead.
So would that larger piece of property change any development because of size? And so now it would all be agriculture with a residential component. Would there be a benefit or something, a reason for the landowner to want it all in one piece? Yeah.
Go ahead, Maria. Yeah.
I think the benefit is the increase in acres, available acres. It also would allow them to develop on that land if they wanted to. The house is located right adjacent to the road allowance, and so the setbacks currently are from the road allowance property line. So if they consolidate that into the triangle, then they have a larger area to develop as well.
Okay, thank you. Greg.
So those two parcels, they don't have separate title right now, do they? And if they do, would they all be amalgamated into one title? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. Go ahead, Maria.
So this land is owned, this is a separate title. The road allowance is not titled. And then this is a separate title. So the applicant has interest in this, but it's not solely owned by that person.
Okay. Okay, Lynette, please.
So the difference is between selling it or leasing it. If we sell them the piece, they can put a building on it, they can do anything onto that. If we lease it to them, is it structured then they can't put buildings on it? They still have to do the setback away from the road allowance, etc. Am I understanding that?
Go ahead, Maria. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So if this was closed and leased, then it would remove public access, the ability for the public to access that road allowance. But the development limitations are still there. So they would still have to follow the applicable setbacks in the land use bylaw for the agriculture general district. And it would not increase their titled number of acres.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or direction? We have a recommendation, but I've heard some other thoughts in terms of direction. What is your wish, Council?
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead, Dan, please. I didn't see that.
I guess it relates to the potential for development in the future. And this is a little seemingly off track, but not really. We're talking about a potential truck route around Brooks. When we're planning that out, are we doing that knowing that we're not going to be allowed to make new railroad crossings? And if that's the case, any potential future development for this one's likely also not going to have any new railroad crossings. And then this little portion's never going to get developed. So I'm on board with staff thinking that this can be sold with no consequence down the road. However, if there is a potential for new crossings, then yes, I can see where this would be a bad idea. So I guess my question is there any potential for new crossings with the railway?
Okay, Jeff stepped up to the mic if you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yes, thank you very much. The new truck route around Brooks does have some CP Rail new crossings proposed. The one crossing on the north-south. In historical discussions, we did talk about an at-grade crossing, but we also talked about when that crossing is built, removing the two adjacent at-grade crossings. And that kind of, at the time, satisfied CP in the planning phases of our truck route. Something similar in this respect. It's a lot like Alberta Transportation managing the accesses onto their highways. CP Rail wants to manage their liabilities with at-grade crossings. They'd far prefer to see an overpass, an underpass, something like that to get around the rail. And I would suspect that if we did ever propose to build this crossing, we would be required to close the crossing at Township Road 17-2 to facilitate that. Township Road 17-2 was just upgraded to a controlled crossing based on a number of incidents that have happened historically with, industry hauling tankers across the tracks and whatnot. So we did upgrade that crossing in conjunction with CP Rail to have lights, to have flashers, to have arms and control it. I really do not see any future crossing at this north-south location. In the at-grade rail crossings, we've been through a big process over the last half decade to a decade here about safety around crossings and whatnot. And any improvements to a crossing would need them to be at a right angle. You see a lot of these historical crossings with the road allowances being as the rail travels from northwest to southeast are on a pretty horrendous skew. So we've done a lot in the last number of years to beef up the safety around those. We've installed stop signs on the cross block posts to make a stop condition there to make sure people are aware of it. But, without rambling on forever, I really don't think that CP Rail would ever entertain a crossing at this location without closing an adjacent crossing.
Thank you, Jeff. Kelly, you've got a further question?
No, actually, I was ready to make a motion if you would entertain it. Yes. I'm recommending, I would like to move option 1. I do appreciate staff's explanation on the merits of this sale, and I take your recommendation of option 1.
Okay, any further questions, comments? Ready for the question? All in favor that we proceed with option 1 as per the recommendation, please indicate. Oppose? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Maria and Jeff. We appreciate that. It being less than 1 minute to 12, I'm going to suggest we break for lunch.